Tonight, I am just joined by Pollo Zapatos, aka John, my co-producer. John, how are you doing?
Fantastic. Happy Thursday. How are you?
Well, it's Thursday. I'm here doing my show. I think I'm doing just fine. Sad to see that Carrion couldn't make it tonight. Unfortunately, he was called away to a very noble obligation. We'll just say that, and that our thoughts and prayers and love are with him and the person that he is assisting tonight. With that, though, the show must go on, and so go on we shall to the amazing conclusion to Severance. John, why don't you go ahead and start us off with your thoughts?
Well, I'm probably like the majority of people who watched the last episode of Severance without looking ahead, and pretty pissed I have to wait for season 2. Because that was a phenomenal ending. Oh my gosh. I totally thought that we were going to get more in season 1. I was really hoping for more. But the way it ended was just perfect. It was so nice. It was so fun to see the majority of our predictions come somewhat true without fully, we didn't predict any of this. By the end of it, we were completely thrown away. It was amazing. Phenomenal ending. What about you? What did you think about the ending
The
to this
sheer
first
size of this show's balls are impressive because to not only end on a cliffhanger, but as a season 1 cliffhanger ending is extremely ballsy to do. And even though they have season 2, for sure is confirmed, it's like, when you're doing a show as a first-run show, you don't typically leave too much on the table. And they left the whole show on the table for next season. And you know what? It worked because the build-up from episode 1 all the way through, this is probably the best 9 weeks of television I've experienced in a very long time. I cannot praise this show enough for it hits all the marks right. It's barely violent. There's hardly any gore in this show. It's mostly cerebral, it's mostly psychological, and I think that was the goal set out from the original writer, and they nailed it perfectly with this. I cannot emphasize enough how much people need to watch this show. And that's why we might not be too spoilery with this review overall, just because the whole build up, and then they managed to deliver with episode 9, but also just end it with a cliffhanger just as impressive as Best of Both Worlds. This is probably one of the best cliffhanger endings since Star Trek The Next Generation's Best of Both Worlds. And that's really saying something because it is one of the most critically acclaimed endings of any show ever. And so with this one, sorry for the spoilers, but we get a satisfying conclusion, so to speak, but man, are we wanting more. I can't go a year without this show. I mean, I will, but I can't, and I don't want to. But worth the ride. Every single thing that happens ends up more or less getting an explanation, but then just the last few sequences, I was just gripping my seat because I was like, they're really gonna end. They're gonna end this on a whole long cliffhanger. Season 1 is gonna end on a cliffhanger, and I was unbelievably surprised by just
the size of it. As far as cliffhangers go, they completely put us on the largest cliff face that we could ever imagine. They gave us the tiniest little taste of the world, and then just were like, okay, see you next week, or next month, or whenever we release season 2.
We'll see you when season 2 is done and ready to watch. Bravo. Huge round of applause is all I can say for this show from season 1. I am ready for season 2. I hope we get a season 3, 4, 5. I mean, I could watch 20 seasons of the show. Well, maybe not. But the point is, the entire concept was further explained and explored. But the implications of this show that this show leaves at the end are are amazing. I'll just say that. And what more concepts could be explored with this stuff are still yet untouched. And that's what I really like about this show, is how much it did a good job of not treating the audience like you're stupid. They didn't explain every little detail, but they explained enough that you didn't feel lost, and the way they told the story was very well thought out. I was hooked from the second I started watching this show and all the way to the end, and I'm already hooked for season 2. Again, this is one of the best shows that's ever graced the airwaves, and I'm glad that it was, basically our first dive into doing this type of show. We got to start with such an amazing show, and hopefully we can continue to ride the coattails. But yeah, where do you even begin? Because I can't even think of any major flaws that this show has. The cast was great. Everybody worked well together. Everyone, you could tell, was very happy to be on this show. Everyone enjoyed what they were doing. And I don't even know... I honestly can't think of any major nitpicks or flaws with this one. Like, it's probably one of the few shows that will ever be considered perfection, I think, in the long run. Now, of course, we'll see how the follow-on seasons go. The downside to doing such a brave cliffhanger with Season 1 is now the expectations for Season 2 are going to be that much higher. And while Ted Lasso, for example, is a great show, Season 2, in some parts it kind of failed to uphold to the original Season 1 feeling. Still good, don't get me wrong, but it just didn't make that mark. And so I think the real challenge for this show now is not necessarily being better than Season 1, but even just meeting the match on Season 1, I think is really going to be... So it's going to depend on what direction they take the show, because it could go anywhere from now. Even though we've got a cliffhanger ending, this show could go anywhere. And that's the most I can say. I mean, do you have any extra thoughts or stuff you want to dive into? I mean, the entire season is on the table here. We don't have to just discuss episode 9. We can discuss episode 1 through 9.
No, yeah, I think we definitely should. I think we should take the time to discuss the definition of what made this show such good writing. Like, when we started this series, I pitched it to you as like, well, this is what I'm watching. Like, I am going to be spending the next 9 weeks watching this series, whether we talk about it or not, because that's kind of how I watch stuff. And when we started talking about it, at first, like, I've watched every episode at least twice now, because better, to be a better podcaster for our show, but also to be more, like, just, there was so much I missed, even from Corione's description of the 8th episode, going into, as we discussed that show, right as we were getting into this episode, like, he described some things that I completely forgot. And every single week, it didn't matter if I remembered everything or not in perfect order. I never felt like I needed that recap. Even though I did bank on it a couple times, especially like if I would watch it after this, like after our show, and stay up late to watch it, I'd be like, okay, I don't remember anything, even though we just talked about it. But then, like, as soon as it started, I was like, oh wait, no, never mind, skip the recap, I know where I'm at. on any episode. And that it's such a weird thing to have a show feel like a book, where you put the book down because you need to fall asleep for the night, but then when you go back to pick it up the next morning, you don't need to go back 3 pages to catch up to where you just left off. Instead, you just hit play on the next episode and you remember where you were, because it just felt like it worked with my brain. Like, it didn't fight my brain, even though it was breaking my brain while watching the events of the show unfold. I just never felt like I forgot anything in terms of, like, oh, did I miss a major plot point in episode 3 that I've now forgot for the rest of the season, and I have to go back from episode 1 and rewatch it all in order to figure this out. No, it's like, I know I watched everything, still have no idea what's going on. Okay, I know what I remembered happened. All of this is in line, it's all congruent, but it's also wild. Like, Oh man, it just felt good. It felt like reading a book while watching the book's events unfold without being able to read into it. Like, I couldn't take notes on the side and be like, oh, there's the Chekhov's gun. Like, that's going to be important. No, none of that. I don't even know what was important in episode 1 versus how it ended in episode 9 that would have made me see episode 9 coming in any way. And that blows my mind.
Getting used to new functionality, trying to keep things more professional, so of course that means I gotta remember to click mute. Anyway, there is a lot that goes on in each episode, and I didn't feel like I needed a recap every time, but then sometimes I was glad I did watch it, because like, oh yeah, there's an aspect of something that came up. And I think what I really appreciated about this, just this season alone, it was a lot like watching one of my favorite movies of all time, The Prestige, which I think we're probably going to do a look back on in the future, because that is a show that I hold as an example of what I think should be taught in schools of what good writing is. That movie tells the story at different timeline intervals, and it does a very good job of showing you all the concepts fairly early, and then at the end of the film, everything's tied up. This show kind of managed to do that by the end of this episode, but also just leaves you wanting more. And that's one of the reasons why it gets high praise for me, is because it did a very good job of explaining everything. Yes, this is probably going to be one of the times where I'm going to watch season 1 again, and we'll probably do a recap episode for the premiere of season 2. But I just love the ride. It was good. It was not impossible to follow, and I didn't feel that it was too hard for people to understand. So again, this is an example of good storytelling. You can make smart, cerebral shows that don't have a bunch of action and a bunch of shoot 'em up, blow 'em up nonsense. You can make a good show that is smart and intelligent. But I think anybody watching this, whether or not you're into popcorn flicks or you like more cerebral stuff, I think this is a show that most anybody could enjoy and get something out of, because it's relatable. The show is super relatable. It takes normal, boring 9-to-5 concept and makes it into a horror movie, essentially. And it does a really good job, and it's not scary Saw, let's play a game horror. It's intelligent, it's cerebral, it's psychological, it's really well done. And so I want to watch more. I'm ready for season 2. I cannot praise this show enough, and that's what I keep trying to tell people. I'm like, if you're not watching Severance, I mean, I don't want to do the Dwight Schrute thing and say, well, you're an idiot, because, well, we're all busy, we all have our lives going on, but if you're not watching Severance, you really are missing out, and you are depriving yourself of something that it's only 9 hours, roughly, or give or take a few minutes on some episodes. It's not that bad to watch all the way through, and that's probably what a lot of people were waiting for, was to binge watch the series. And yes, if you were waiting to binge watch this series, binge watch this series. You will enjoy every aspect. I mean, it probably will feel overwhelming, now that I'm thinking about it. If you were to binge this show right now, it's a lot. So I would honestly caution and pace yourself. I would do maybe 3 episodes a day at most, because a lot happens in this 45 minutes to an hour long episodes that you really do want to think about watching it. That was one of the things, and I'm just going to go on a little bit of a personal tangent with this. That was one of the things I didn't like about Netflix, for example. While it's fine to release the show all at once, there was something that was lost, and that's that weekly, the weekly thinking about it and chewing on it like we did, because we would do our show and then the new episode would be out that night. And so what I like having those week breaks, because it gives us time to think about it, it gives us time to analyze each episode more thoroughly, and then we're not just overwhelmed with a bunch of information. So if you're gonna binge this show, I do recommend 3 episode a day rule. If you don't feel like it's too much for you, then keep going. I'm not gonna tell you, like, there's really I think the only wrong way to watch a show is like this. This is the wrong way to watch a show. No, you're gonna want to put the phone down for this one. It's that good. So,
Yeah.
Any other thoughts before we move on to our next segment? Because I mean, I think we've hit it without hitting too many spoilers. I mean, it's such a good ride. It's such a good solid ending. I don't even want to get too much into it because at this point, all we can really do is wait for season 2.
Well, it's like, I don't want to just gloss over it either in terms of the fact that like I like what you said. It's not a binge in a row show. Like getting to the end isn't the actual fun part of the show. It's actually the worst part of the show. It's that it ends on such a point that you want more. It makes you feel like I think it's funny you talk about the difference between Netflix and this, where it's like the weekly releases and stuff like that. I love Netflix for the binge shows. I love being able to come into my show and know that I'm gonna get to the end of this event by the end of season 1, and season 2 will start up with a new event and all that stuff. And this one frustrates me just like all other shows that, you know, used to be on like cable broadcast, where you would get to the end of a season and you were just like, I hope this doesn't get canceled. But then they announced like right before the episode dropped that they were for sure signing on to season 2. So like we knew it wasn't canceled, but at the same time, now I'm even more frustrated because I can't wait to start this whole ride again. It's very much like going to Disneyland, getting in line for a ride, and being like, I'm really scared, I'm really nervous, I don't know if I'm going to enjoy this, and then having the best time ever, so you get back in that 200-person line and wait your turn again. And I feel like that's where we are, is we are waiting our turn in line to ride this ride again. But the crazy thing is, like I said, I watched each episode about twice, and in watching each episode twice, I realized that like most of the information doesn't come across in the first viewing. It doesn't even come across in the second viewing entirely. And now, like that it's over, I just want to watch it again to see what told us anything. Like, I feel like now that I know the ending, I can find clues for how season 2 may or may not go, but only clues. And it's that kind of writing, that style of writing is very risky. Like for the majority, like the first 4 episodes, I'd say you were very adamant that like you hoped this wasn't mystery box writing. That's what it is, mystery box writing. And you were really worried that this could just be a mystery box writing. But now at the end, like I don't know how you feel for sure now, but for me personally, I'm like, this is definitely not mystery box. But what's in the box? Like, I cannot handle not knowing where this all resides. And I say that purely out of how much joy this show gave me. I am so excited to watch more. I'm so excited to see this whole world realized, because I was immersed from episode 1. I could relate to the character in terms of being somebody who wishes they could shut off the 9 to 5 and wake up at the end every day. Like as soon as I got to work, if I forgot it and then got home and I was happy again, that'd be awesome to some extent. Now this show makes me completely terrified of that. But that was a relatable thing that made this world feel desirable. And now the way it ends, it's like, oh, they're really playing on that desire. Like they knew what they were doing, and I really can't see any form of like mystery box writing, but they definitely wrote a mystery box. Like they made it without breaking it. It's really awesome. But,
yeah, I definitely don't feel like it's mystery box hack writing by the end of this. I think they have a clear idea of where they want to go, and at least for season 1. Now, we'll see how season 2 goes, but they definitely planned out season 1, and I hope that's the same. I hope that they just planned out and wrote both seasons, because that's the smartest way to do things. One of the biggest reasons that the Star Wars sequel trilogy fell on its face was for the simple fact a lot of problems of the sequel trilogy could have been solved if they just planned the whole thing out in ahead of time. That would have solved most of the issues with that series. So that seems to be the case here, is that they didn't just put out a first season and see if people like it. I think they were like, you know what? Whether or not we get one person to love this show or 1 million people to love this show, we're going to make it. We're going to do what we want. We're going to do our show. And that's what I see here. I don't see a product that was put together with the anticipation of expecting millions upon millions of viewers. I see a product that was well thought out, that was going to be what it's going to be. And that was the focus, was telling a good story first and foremost. None of the other usual checkbox stuff. It was nope, we're just gonna make a show, we're gonna cast some people, hopefully they work together. Oh look, they all did, and here it is, enjoy. This is entertainment at its best, and this is what I want to see most companies shift back to, is good entertainment. Apple TV has been featured on our show most of the time for the simple fact that Apple TV is putting out good products that we want to show and talk about. And so that's why right now, the day may come when we no longer have an Apple TV show at the front of this show or even a part of this show, but that's definitely not happening anytime soon. So just something to keep aware out there for all you network producers and show producers trying to push something. Severance is a good idea to draw from, not necessarily just trying to go from the concept, but just there's so much going on. It's not just the concept that was really good.
Effort.
Huh?
It's the effort. The
Yes.
amount of effort into putting together a quality cast, a quality story, a quality experience. Like, as a viewer, I don't feel like I wasted a single minute, and as a podcaster, I feel like this is going to be the thing that actually launches our show, is in terms of like anybody who comes to our show and finds out that we like Severance and then goes and watch Severance is going to say thank you for showing me Severance because it was awesome. That's the effort I'm talking about.
Yeah, and that's what I want to see more of. It's just it started with good writing, then they wrote good characters. They had a great concept to explore, and they explored it pretty well, even just in the first season. And it's well acted, well casted. There is nothing bad that I can say about this show. I got nothing bad, honestly. Nothing's coming to mind, and I'm really trying to rack my brain. Like, maybe even some nitpicky stuff here and there. I just, overall, this show was worth it. There wasn't a single dull moment, and every, especially the last couple episodes leading up to the finale, I was screaming at the top of my lungs at my TV because oh my gosh, what a ride. What a ride this show has been, and I cannot wait for season 2. I'm ready for season 2 tonight, and I'm sad we don't get to.
Yeah, and I'm only sad because I'm excited for how season 2's gonna end. It's that it's similar to the wait for each of the Lord of the Rings. Maybe not so much The Hobbit, but when it came to watching the Two Towers and then waiting for Return of the King, I was just sad that I had finished Two Towers too fast. I'm sad that this ended too fast. I would rather have started season 1 the day season 2 is about to drop, so that way I can get right into season 2. But not in terms of I wish I postponed this, because I don't. I love this show. It's so much fun, and I would rather be sad now than have waited to watch the show, because the show's phenomenal and it's so much fun. I enjoy the fact that a show can make me miss it right after it ends. That's a wild feeling from an inanimate object. And I think it's beautiful. I think it's well done, well written, and just given in all, the beats were correct. Even Corione, he described what we should expect according to the standard metrics of shows, and instead of it being a blunder on that path, it was a solid telling. It had solid pacing. It took you along a journey, and it was able to go off to the side and, deal with some other things that made other characters important. As, the story grows, we start to see the importance of all the characters. But there was no filler. No episode felt like I just need to get through it. I feel like I learned something new about the world in every single episode. I was really nervous that maybe one of our shows would be like, all right, we're going to do episode X of Severance, and honestly, it was a show that we watched. Next topic. No, not once. We spent the first 30 minutes of every show discussing that in an episode, and that is awesome. I love that.
Yeah, that is definitely the mark of what really makes a good show, is the fact that we have nothing bad to say overall, aside from screw you guys for going for such a ballsy cliffhanger. That's really the only bad thing I could say, and if that's the worst thing that anyone can say about your show, yes, the trick is going to be recapturing that magic for season 2. But even then, this season alone, like I have been saying since we started, this first season is a win either way. You managed to create something amazing, something very special, something memorable. And so I don't even think it's yes, I have high expectations for season 2. But we'll see how it goes. I will say it was worth the ride to explore the concept even in season 1, and I hope that continues in season 2. I think season 2 is going to be a little bit more on the political side, not so much the exploring the concept like we saw in season 1. I think a lot of what's going to be happening is it's just going to be kind of going, okay, now you guys are familiar with how the system works. Here's where it goes. I'm willing to bet that the first season that the second season begins with either Helly or Mark on the table. Like, that's how it's gonna start, and they're just gonna be like, oh no, and it's gonna just go from there, like explaining how they didn't quite succeed, but now the message is out, and Mark, while he was thinking of quitting, is now thinking like, oh, maybe I shouldn't. I don't know how they're gonna set up season 2, but the way they left off, like, it could go anywhere, and I don't know. I don't know, and I'm okay with that because most of our theories. So, any final thoughts on Severance, John?
Just hurry up. Release the next season. Let's go. I'm ready.